Recording in progress.
I like that it gives you the option to leave. Like, oh, I'm out.
I'm out. You're not getting any of my words.
Oh, it does for real?
Yeah,
Yeah,
like
it says
when
leave.
you're not the host, it gives you the option to leave when you start recording.
Wow. It says, Interesting. Are we ready?
Ready.
Ready.
Hi, everyone, and thank you for listening to Can You Repeat That podcast? Oop, let me restart that. Hi, everyone, and thank you for listening to Can You Repeat That podcast? We're your hosts. My name is Leslie.
My name's Chantelle.
And I am Atlas. Music. Dun, 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 music.
Okay, before we begin, I just wanted to say Happy Father's Day to all the dads out there on this side of the pond. And Atlas will be telling us a story today, so take her away.
I will be. But before I begin, I'd just like to ask you both a question, as I did last time. Have you ever had one of those days where it just feels like you can't do anything right?
Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely hate yourself by the end of it. Like, why did I even get out of bed today?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Whether or not it was actually justified.
Yes.
I guess.
Okay. So I'm asking with this because the next time you feel like that, I want you to remember Emperor Joseph II of the Hapsburg monarchy and think to yourself, I didn't really screw up that badly.
Oh.
So I'm going to be talking today about an event called the Battle of Karansebes. Karansebes is a city in modern-day Romania, and it was the center of a fun little conflict known as the Austro-Turkish War. Well, it was a part of the Austro-Turkish War. So Joseph II was, we've talked about them before, I talked about them before, a Holy Roman Emperor. So you can tell there's going to be some fun involved already. And he was the sole ruler of what was known as the Hapsburg monarchy. This was kind of toward the end of the Holy Roman Empire's life, so they're kind of winding down in influence and power. And Joseph had gotten himself involved in a war between the Russians, himself, couple other countries, and then the other player in our story, the Ottoman Empire, also known as the Turkish Empire. A short little blurb about them. They were an imperial realm that spanned much of Southeast Europe, West Asia, North Africa, from the 14th century all the way to post-World War I. So long life. They even controlled parts of Central Europe from the early 16th and 18th centuries. They reached the height of their power under their emperor known as Suleiman the Magnificent. After that, it kind of went, he was kind of the best they had. And after that, they had a steady decline until there was what was known as the Young Turk Revolution in 1908. Completely overthrew the imperial part of it, but kept the name. They joined the Central Powers on the side of Germany in World War I, were defeated alongside Germany in World War I, and everything they had was divided up. But this was still toward the height of their power when this battle occurred. And Joseph had gotten himself, like I said, involved in a war against them. Really was a terrible idea. But it took place, as I said, in a place called Karansebes. I'm going to do something a little bit differently. I'm going to tell you the casualties first.
Oh.
Because you'll have questions after I do. So on one side, you had the Habsburg monarchy, an army of, depending on the source, and I will say there's a little bit of uncertainty, historically speaking. Some sources are contradictory, and I'll try to point that out where I can. And there are very few Habsburg and Austrian sources left, which may be an attempt to hide what happened, and you'll see why. But most sources agree there were somewhere between 80,000 to 100,000 Habsburg soldiers, mostly made up of Austrians, Germans, Romanians, Serbs, Croats, Italians, a large variety of people. And you may see a mistake already that none of them shared a common language.
Yeah.
and this played very much into the Battle of Karansebes. Casualties are where we kind of run into some gray area. It's been estimated in the traditional narrative that there were many as 10,000 Hapsburgs who died. There were at least 1,500 because we have hospital records of the wounded. So somewhere in that range is generally the accepted amount of people who died on the side of the Hapsburgs.
Sorry, 1,500 to how many?
To 10,000.
somewhere in that range. But over 1,000 people for sure, because there are hospital records from Arad, which was a fortress nearby
Mhm.
where some of the wounded were taken. Also lost to the Hapsburgs were an entire cannon division and the chests containing the army's payroll.
Ooh.
All those were lost
Oof.
in this battle.
Oh my.
Now we come to the other side of it, the Ottoman Empire. Guess how many casualties they sustained? Just throw out a number.
Honestly, I don't want to guess because I'm going to be so far off or maybe spot on, and I don't know which is worse.
Guess anyway.
Is
Mm,
it? I want to go on the lower side just for fun. Like I want to say like 400.
Okay.
I'm going to say 5,000 question mark.
Okay. Chantelle was closer.
Okay, see?
The Ottoman Empire in the Battle of Karansebes lost no soldiers because they weren't there.
Oh,
Uh-oh.
Let that sink in for a minute.
she was too stunned to speak.
So the traditional narrative for how the battle went goes as follows. There are a few gaps in the history, and obviously some embellishment has been added by sources after the fact. But the army of Austria, approximately 100,000 strong, was setting up camp near the town of Karansebes. The army's vanguard, which was a contingent of hussars. Hussars were a light cavalry at this time, mostly used for scouting action. If you've heard the famous song about the winged hussars of Poland, well, look it up on YouTube if you haven't. It's awesome. But they crossed the Times River to scout for the presence of the Ottoman army. There was no sign whatsoever of the Ottomans, but they came across a group of local Romani who offered to sell them some schnapps. Being weary soldiers who had been on campaign for some time, they took it. They took a lot of it, and then they took some more of it. Soon afterwards, following the vanguard, the first divisions of infantry began to cross the river. They ran into the same group of Romani along with the now drunk Austrian hussars. They saw the party that was going on and they demanded some alcohol for themselves. The hussars said no. Not only did they say no, they set up fortification around the barrels of alcohol to keep the infantry from it. A very heated argument ensued, and one soldier, we don't know who, but all records agree,
Oh my gosh.
fired a shot.
Okay. Oh my gosh. So they had a battle against themselves over some alcohol?
It gets worse.
Oh my gosh. Okay, continue.
No,
Sorry.
by commentary is appreciated because this is one of those they did what now kind of battles. Upon firing a shot, you now have drunk soldiers versus soldiers who want to be drunk, and they engaged in open combat with each other. During the conflict, that little bit of we're all different ethnicities and speak different languages came into play.
Oh my gosh.
Some of the Romani infantry who were in the ranks of the Austrians began shouting, Turkey, Turkey, or Turks, Turks. The hussars, thinking that the Ottoman Empire was attacking, fled. Most of the infantry scattered in all directions. And the army comprised of, as I said, Austrians, Romanis, Serbs, Croats, Italians. They could not understand each other. It's not clear which of these groups first did so, but they started giving false warnings telling the others that they were under attack and just kind of spread the terror among the ranks. The situation was made worse when German officers, in an attempt to restore order, began shouting, which was misheard by soldiers with no knowledge of German as the name Allah, which the Ottoman Empire was an Islamic empire. So that just kind of made it worse and made them really, really believe that they were being attacked by the Ottomans because they thought they were hearing people crying, Allah, Allah, Allah. The hussars went full speed back across the river toward the camp. Those in the camp heard the commotion and saw what they thought were cavalry attacking them. So they opened fire on their own cavalry who were trying to run away from imaginary enemies.
Oh no.
The general of artillery, a man by the name of Colloredo, thought that it was a cavalry charge by the Ottoman Empire, on the Ottoman army, and his cannons that were set up on a hill overlooking the camp opened fire in panic. The entire camp awoke by this point to the sound of battle, and the artillery was not very picky about where they hit, and they started firing into their own camp, trying to kill the evil Ottoman cavalry that were their own cavalry.
Oh my gosh.
Who organized this?
At this point, there was no way to salvage this situation. There was nothing, and the army scattered in all directions. Some groups managed to maintain some sort of cohesion, fighting off each other as they went because none of them could understand each other. This incident so demoralized the Holy Roman Emperor Joseph II that he sent orders for all his armies on all fronts to withdraw. This was toward the end of the Austro-Turkish War in 1791, and they just, at this point, he'd had it, he was done. This was a terrible idea, and their gains were not that great anyway. 2 days after the battle, the Ottoman army finally arrived. They found all the dead and wounded soldiers and walked into Karansebes on a whim.
Mm.
As I said, there's a little bit of, when we get into the sources, and I'll post the source, I'm not going to try to pronounce the sources because I don't speak Hungarian or Turkish. There are very few sources from the Austrians. This is likely to cover up any sort of embarrassment on their part, or at
Uh-huh.
the very least, they weren't really feeling in a sharing mood when asked.
Uh-huh.
I personally wouldn't be either. Accounts of this instance do not distinguish between the losses that were caused by friendly fire and those that were caused by the pillaging that occurred afterwards. Like I said, one account, we know at least there were 1,500 who were wounded, but it goes from anywhere from there all the way up to 10,000. The number of that full 10,000 is kind of discounted because there's only one source that mentions it, and it was written 60 years after the battle itself.
Oh, yeah.
So it's a little bit
Probably
kind
not the strongest source.
probably not. It's been repeated a couple times, but most discount it. From what I've read in researching this event, I would say it's somewhere between 2,000 and 3,000 total.
Mhm.
That seems to be what most of them agree on, at least the non-Austrian ones. The Austrian sources don't even mention that they lost like their army's payroll or cannons, and they say like numbers of like a couple hundred. Just it was a minor skirmish. No, it wasn't, sir. As for the overall war itself, like I said, this was just kind of one of the events that led to Joseph II realizing that his alliance with the Russians against the Ottomans was just a terrible idea. Shortly after this, they withdrew from the war anyway by way of a peace treaty when the Prussians started saying, this is getting ridiculous and you're constantly going back and forth in our backyard to punch each other, so no, we're done. And you're going to be done if you keep fighting.
Wow.
But yeah, so if you ever have a rotten day, just remember Joseph II, and it could be a heck of a lot worse.
Wow. Noted for sure. That will help. That's embarrassing.
Mhm.
In the least amount of words, saying the most, yes. That is embarrassing.
It's so embarrassing.
Oh. So their payroll was gone too. So did someone just
Payroll was gone too.
So
Yep.
someone-
Nobody in that. Yep.
just took it and said bye? Or
There are two theories as to what happened. Either deserters from the army took it, thinking they just had a quick payday, or the one that I like is that the local Romani who sold them the schnapps took it as fair payment for them wrecking up their town.
oh yeah.
I like
that
to
one.
think that was
Oh.
it, that the Romani were like, no, you wrecked our home, we're taking your money.
Yeah, I like that one too.
Yep, I agree. That one's more satisfying.
It is, I agree.
Huh. That I guess mass panic is a thing. Has always been a thing.
It is, and if you and I were somewhere together and you panicked over something and began shouting at you in English and I spoke Italian, we'd kind of have some problems.
Oh yeah. I know you said they don't speak the same language, but I didn't really take an account of that until
No.
this moment.
No.
So yeah, if some random person came up to me and started screaming in a different language, I would immediately think something's wrong.
Especially if you're hearing
Gunfire.
what's one word
and
in their
cannons.
language, gunfight or cannon fire, and thinking you're hearing in your own language someone shouting an Ottoman attack cry.
Wow. That is
Yeah.
a series of unfortunate events. Honestly, that sucks. Incredibly embarrassing, a massive waste of resources and money, and that poor town that got
And that poor town.
messed up.
Honestly, a big womp womp all around.
A big womp womp.
Alice, you have the best stories.
Honestly, yes.
Speaking of the stories and sources, as I said, I'll post those for you to post along with the story.
Mhm.
The only one that I can pronounce, and with no degree of great success, is Zurkrig. Nope, we're not even going to attempt it. Never mind. I don't. To our listeners, I apologize. I don't speak Turkish. I don't speak Hungarian. I don't speak Arabic, and that's what these sources were in. I can translate it, but I don't speak it well.
Yeah. So far we have listeners in Germany, which is really cool, the United Kingdom, Canada, and the United States, and I think that's it. But the more y'all download episodes, the more y'all pop up on our map, and it makes us way too happy. So
We love it.
it's exciting. I impulsively check our downloads many times throughout the day. So, but yeah. All right. Any fun facts or anything we need to add on? Or is it outro time? I don't even know what to search to try to find fun facts, like how I did with Shanty's story. So
Well, I guess one fun fact is despite their humiliating loss here against an enemy that wasn't there, most of the Austrian army that died in this war didn't die in battle. They died of dysentery. Fun fact, I guess.
Huh, dysentery. Remind
More
me.
than 30,000.
Remind me.
I'd say Google it, but don't. You basically, how do I put this? Trigger warning, I guess. You bloody poop yourself to death.
Oh no.
Complications of dehydration. I think I'd rather die of embarrassment in the Battle of Karansebes.
Yeah, that is an unfortunate way to go. I think I'd agree with you. Oh, what a awful, awful thing to have in your history books.
Imagine.
We're going to talk about the time we went to war with ourselves and lost.
If you thought the emus were tough.
Emus might have done a better job, I think.
They're tougher. They'd have less losses.
Yeah.
That on a episode of The Ultimate Warrior. That show doesn't- well, if that show is still running. Emu versus Hapsburg monarchy soldier.
Spoiler alert, Emu wins.
Emu always wins.
Definitely.
All right. I can do the outro unless one of you want to do the
I can
outro.
do the outro. You all been doing the outro. I can do the outro
Okay.
on my own story. It's fine.
I mean, I don't mind doing the outro.
Thank you all so much for listening to our podcast. As always, you can find any pictures and sources pertaining to the story posted. I'm just going to start that over because I tripped over my own words in the beginning and in the middle. Thank you all so much for listening to our podcast. As always, you can find any pictures and sources pertaining to the story posted on our Instagram and Twitter at CY.
You said it.
Instagram and Twitter. Ha! Take 3.
Intergram.
Together. Atlas. Get it together. Take 4.
Maybe you need to go back to bed.
Nope. Thank you all so much for listening to our podcast.
Do you want me to do it?
No, I can do that. It's personal now.
Just
I can do it.
so you know, I'm probably not going to cut this out because it's really funny.
That's fine. It's personal now. You and me outro. Thank you all so much for listening to our podcast. As always, you can find any pictures pertaining to this story posted on our Instagram and Twitter at CYRTpod. Be sure to rate and review us wherever you listen, as rating helps us out a ton. If you have any topic suggestions or want to share a story of your own, please send us an email at cyrtpod@gmail.com. Until next time, don't go to war with people who don't speak the same language as you.
Good job, Atlas.
Preach it.
All right. I will end this one now. And do y'all want to play Fortnite?
Yes.
Okay.
Lego.
All right. Bye.
Bye.